In 1924, a gentleman whose last name was Kowalski was born in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, just across the river from Detroit, Michigan. When he was 9 years old, they moved to Detroit, and he became a well-known wrestler in the wrestling scene in that area. He was so good that they called him Killer Kowalski. Move ahead a few years, more than a few years. I was in 6th grade. My 6th grade school teacher's name was Mrs. Kowalski. She was one tough woman. She looked tough when she came in the classroom. She was tough on us. She expected us to behave, and she expected us to learn. The rumor went around that she was Killer Kowalski's wife and that she enjoyed the lifestyle. 6th grade boys can be very interesting, as some of you know because you were school teachers. Some of you raised 6th grade boys. One day, the intercom in the classroom crackled to life. "Mrs. Kowalski, would you come to the office, please?" On our way out, we were given very strict instructions to behave, and she put a responsible student in charge who went up to her desk and sat down and did his work while everybody else did her work. A boy in class reached out and pulled the pigtails of a girl ahead of him. She screamed. She went up to the desk to report what had happened. What she didn't realize is that the student at the desk had noticed the same thing some of the rest of the students had noticed. She had taken a sharp pencil and had jammed it into his knee. And he screamed, just a quiet ouch, and reached up and pulled those pigtails. Well, while she's at the desk, I remember it well, the student at the desk waved a pencil in her face and poked her in the eye with it. That's when it started. It all broke loose. It became a free-for-all. Students were running around the room. They were telling on each other. They were laughing. They were carrying on, and then it happened. The door opened, and Mrs. Kowalski stood there. We were in trouble. I mean, we were in deep doo-doo trouble. We had it, and we knew it. I don't remember exactly what happened at that moment, but I do remember some after-school detention, and I remember some parents getting called home by the teacher. I was one of them who got called on. I was the student at the desk who waved the pencil and poked her eye. I wasn't going to tell you that part, but I figured I might as well. I was supposed to be responsible. Mrs. Kowalski came unexpectedly. Jesus gave his disciples a warning about the end-time calamities. Mark 13, verse 33. Something happened to it. Be on guard. Be alert. You do not know when that time will come that Jesus Christ is going to return to the earth again. The storyline here in Mark chapter 13, beginning with about verse 31, going through verse 37, the end of the chapter, is a man is going on a journey. When he leaves out on that journey, he gives each of his staff members, his servants, an assignment. And among those assignments, he's expecting them to take care of his house. When he comes back, he wants it to be clean. Have you ever gone on an extended vacation and come back and there's dust laying all over the place? We've had that happen. He wanted his house to be clean when he get back. Have you ever gone on a vacation and come back and the hot water tank's gone off and you don't have any hot water? We've had that happen. He wanted hot water when he got back. Well, I don't know if they had hot water back then or not in their house, but that's what he wanted. He went on vacation, and when he came back, he wanted the mail to have been taken in. He wanted the newspapers. Have you ever gone on vacation and forgot to have your mail taken care of? Now all I do is call the kids and say, go get our mail, and hope that they remember to do it. Go pick our newspaper up and hope that they remember to do it. Kurt's back there laughing because more often than not, we come home and there's mail and paper there. He gave all these assignments, and he said to the doorman of the house, keep watch. Because when I come back, I want that door to be opened up and allow me to come in. I don't know when I may return, but I want to be let in the house when I come back, so keep watch. Verse 35 and 36 kind of puts it there. Keep watch, because you don't know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening or at midnight or when the rooster crows or at dawn. If he comes suddenly, do not let him find you sleeping. Well, I've looked at that and I've thought, boy, that poor doorman. He must have had to sit in an easy chair right by that door and have one ear covered by the pillow and the other ear listening for someone to come up to the front of the house. 24/7. He must have had to have somebody fill in for him at times when he had to go take care of necessary things. Keep watch. When the guy comes, he wants in. Today is the first Sunday of Advent. And if you came here today expecting some cute message about the coming birth of Jesus, you're not going to get that today. Here's the straightforward message. Jesus came, and he's coming again unexpectedly. He is coming. Back to 6th grade, Mrs. Kowalski just left the room. She didn't know how long she was going to be gone. She didn't tell us how long she was going to be gone. She just showed up, and we were unprepared, and we were in trouble. Mark 13:33, be alert. You do not know when the time will come. What does this say to me? It tells me, first thing, I have the responsibility as God's person not to go off on some wild tangent, not to allow the things of the world to creep in and to pull me away, but I have the responsibility to always remember Jesus is coming back to take me home again someday, and I better be spiritually ready to go or I'm going to be in trouble. That means I've got to be into God's Word. That means I need to be living that holy life day after day after day. That means my guard always has to be up, and I don't need to allow anything that could come and take me away from the love of Jesus Christ and allow me to start living an unholy life. That means that in an instant in my life, I could do something that could turn me away from God because I'm human. And so I have to be aware of what I'm doing all the time. They tell people that when you're out shopping, especially at night, be aware of your surroundings. My mother tells the story, or used to tell the story. She went to the shopping center one day, it was right at dusk, to go do some shopping. Now, back in those days, Dad liked to drive, well, he still likes to drive nice cars, but he had a bright cherry red Lincoln. This is back when the Lincolns were the big cars, the big four-door sedans. And if you had a dark blue one, it looked like a funeral car. But he had this bright cherry red one. And Mom said as she got to the shopping center, she had this feeling that she was being watched by somebody. She went into the shopping center, and she said as she was walking around the shopping center, she kept seeing this same man just kind of peering at her around corners, and it just kept appearing. And she remembered, be aware of your surroundings. And as she left to go back out to the car, she noticed that she was being followed. And so Mom, being the individual that she was, all of a sudden went like she had forgotten something and turned around, went right back into the mall and found a security guard and asked if he would walk her out to her car because she thought she was being followed. The guy disappeared at that point. Be aware of your surroundings so you don't get overtaken by some evil, by something that could do harm to your spiritual life. Be alert. That's the main message. that I see here. But it also says to me, as God's people, we have the responsibility to be the door watchers and to share the story of Christmas, the gospel story, with the world. We do a pretty good job of that. We give to missions. We send missionaries out around the world so that they can tell the story. That's not good enough. I need to be sharing that story every day through my lifestyle, through a chance to talk to people when I have a chance to. Do I have a chance to say when somebody says, "Why are you so happy?" Because Jesus Christ is in my life. I need to not be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I need to let people know I live a life of integrity, and why I live that life of integrity is not just to be a good person. It's because Jesus Christ has come and made a difference in my life. Accompanying this message is the deep desire to hear God speaking to me, to intervene in my life and to come close to me day after day and to show His power and His glory. We were talking about some things in Sunday school this morning about running a tight balancing act, and it was having to do with finances and keeping our commitments to God. Have you ever tried to pat your head and rub your stomach? Can you do it the other way? Wait a minute. Yeah, it takes a minute to do that, doesn't it? Yeah. You see, it's that tight balancing act that we have to do. That tight balancing act that says, I'm living for God, I'm in the world, and I need to keep myself presentable in the world so that people can see the joy and love of God here, but yet I don't want to allow anything in the world to tear me apart, and I've got to keep living this holy life. It's a balancing act so that I can allow God to come into me and to allow His power and glory to show out to those around me. So they see that Christianity is not this dull, boring thing. That I can actually have fun living for Christ and do it in a holy way. I look at this thing and I say we're called to keep one eye on the future and one eye on the present day, and do those things required to keep the household running while the master's away. And at the same time, be prepared for Him to come unexpectedly any second. It's a balancing act that only He can help me do. My walk to Bethlehem begins with the vision of the end. Jesus Christ came as a baby. But yet as I look at the end, Jesus says in verse 31 of Mark chapter 13, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never end. And what that says to me is be prepared. There's hope. There is hope. Today we lit the first Advent candle in honor of hope. Hope is the emotional state that promotes the belief in a positive outcome related to events and circumstances in our lives. It's the feeling that what is wanted can be had, or that events will turn out for the best. It's the act of looking forward to things with desire and reasonable confidence, the feeling that something desired is going to happen. Other definitions are we cherish something with a desired anticipation. We desire with expectation of attainment. We expect with confidence this is going to happen. I don't know how many of you have traveled through Pennsylvania. If you're going across Interstate 80, I think it is, there's this mile-long tunnel. I despise that thing. It's horrible. I don't like these closed-in spaces. Friday afternoon during the funeral viewing, there were 300 to 400 people through this building. It was packed. It was crowded. The parking lot was, I needed to have you and Mel come and take care of parking. Let's put it that way on Friday. The hallway was packed. A number of times I got called in here to take care of. We were having some. It was full moon week, you know. I was having some trouble with the media. We were showing slides of Mike's life, and I had to contact Kurt twice at work. What do I do here? And every time I had to go through that hallway, I just felt like screaming and running because and I couldn't run because there were too many people. I kind of had to fish my way through the crowd all the way to the sound booth. I couldn't come through this way because the casket was right here. And I thought about these crowded spaces, and as I would get near the end of that crowd, I could see the daylight at the back door and think, oh, I'm almost there. That's the way that tunnel is in Pennsylvania. You go through it, and you get almost halfway through it, and you're starting to feel like, I'm going to die. And then you see this little pinhole of light, and it starts getting bigger. Have you been in that tunnel, Dan? You're laughing. Bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden you're at the end. The daylight at the end of the tunnel. Our lives are like that. We go along here on this earth, and all this stuff's coming at us and knocking us aside sometimes, and yet our hope is that daylight at the end of the tunnel. Jesus Christ is going to come back to take us home again. Back about 10 years ago, there were some terrible economic downturns. And somebody back then said it's as though the tunnel the light at the end of the tunnel has been turned off. People lost their finances, they lost their businesses, they lost their life savings in some cases. Some people lost their pensions. It was horrible. A lot of people just lost their hope. Hope's a strange thing. There's lots of pain and suffering out there. And we say God can and will heal our hurts. And then we go and we testify about how God has touched us. And the next week we're knocked down again. We'll praise God because things are going so good in our life, and then all these things start happening that we have to stop and question, where is the hope really? Someone will go through surgery and they seem to not be doing good, and we pray for them, and all of a sudden they've perked up, and then they pass away. We get some extra money from somewhere and we think, oh great, I can get caught up. And then all of a sudden something else happens and we're in trouble again. And we wonder, where is hope? Where is hope? You see, our hope is not tied into the things of this earth. Our hope is tied into Jesus Christ and His love in the gentle King. The world was expecting a king. The King of the Jews was coming. He had been foretold through prophets in the Old Testament. All of your major religions had said something is going to happen. There's going to be a new king coming. And so the world was expecting this big explosion type thing to happen, and the king just to drop down and take over for the King of the Jews. And he came quietly as a baby. Ashley, did Jasper come quietly? To those who were close, they knew what was happening. But to the world around them, they really didn't know what to think. A baby was born. He was announced by a star. He was loved by a group of dirty old shepherds coming in from the field. He was given gifts by some wise men that showed up a couple weeks later, a little bit later down the road. He was hated by a political leader who decided to kill all baby boys under 2. But basically, he came into the world quietly and grew up, became a teacher of God. And at the end, He could have gone into Jerusalem with an army and taken over again. But he went in simply through an eastern gate on a donkey with a group of people, quietly, facing the dangers and what was waiting him. We live in a world with tensions, and we're reminded to be bearers of peace and love of the gentle King. When we're broken, we're reminded to pray. We're reminded to allow God to transform us and transform our relationships. And when we're feeling as though it's all over, we're reminded that when we put our trust in God, all of our needs will be met. And I can tell you from experience, it's true. Many of you can as well. But the hope is still there. Jesus is coming again. He is coming. And so this week, I send you out rejoicing. Good Christian men and women, rejoice. Christ is coming. I send you out this week to look for hope, to share signs of hope with the world around you. He is hope. He is coming. He wants to make a difference in your personal world and in the world around you. Join us this morning as we sing.